Lord, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to understand, and give us sober minds as we go into your word. We love you, we praise you, and we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so today we are going into Daniel chapter 11, and like I said before we prayed, we are going to spend 2 weeks in this chapter, but the goal is to still cover the entire chapter today. And the reason why is, first off, this is a pretty long chapter. It's like 40-something verses long, I think 45. And the other chapters we've been going through have been like 20-something. So we'll have to go through it a little bit quicker. But another reason why we're going to spend several weeks in this chapter is because this chapter is the most detailed prophecy in the entire Bible. Out of the 40-something verses that there are, most people, when they number out the actual number of prophecies in the chapter, they number it around like 135. To where there are several prophecies in every single verse that historians can clearly identify with like directly being fulfilled in human history. And it's actually so extreme that this chapter single-handedly is the reason why so many skeptics will argue that Daniel was actually written hundreds of years after we believe it was written. Right? We believe that Daniel was written in like the mid-500s BC, whereas the events that he's going to predict in this chapter lead all the way to 150 BC, which is 400 years in the future. And he's not just going to be giving like vague Nostradamus-like prophecies, and he's not even going to be as vague as he's been in previous chapters. You know, in previous chapters he's talked about, beasts, and it's all been like very like metaphorical and stuff like that. He's going to be very specific, to where as a historian you can look at this and you can say, oh, he is clearly talking about this king, and he's talking about this battle, and he's talking about this alliance, and he's talking about this alliance that fell through, and you can go through and beat by beat you can establish what they're talking about. And so obviously those people who don't believe that the Bible is the inspired word of God, they'll push back and they'll say, well, obviously this book could not have been written in 550 BC because there's not a single human being who could predict the future with that level of accuracy, right? Typically, whenever you have people trying to predict stuff, it's always very vague, right? And that's because, if I say, it's going to rain tomorrow, well, it's probably going to rain somewhere. And so, when tomorrow rolls around, even if it doesn't rain in this area, I can say, oh, well, what I meant is it was going to rain over in Japan, So if you speak vaguely, anybody can predict the future. But if you speak this specifically, it's very clear signs that, there's something divine going on. And so skeptics, they push back and they say this had to have been written hundreds of years later. And I even considered devoting an entire week to explaining how we date the book of Daniel. And we might still do that. We might do that just at the end of the book. I don't know. We might not. But at the very least, I just want to let you know right now, we have good reason for believing it does actually date to the time that it suggests it was written. And if we go more into that later, maybe we will. If not, I would encourage you to go look into it on your own. But for that reason, this chapter is really cool. Because if it was written 400 years before the events came to pass, then we have 135 prophecies in this chapter that all testify to the fact that there is a God, and that God is the God of Israel, and he spoke through Daniel, and he spoke through the prophets, and therefore we have every reason to trust him. And keep in mind, Daniel's the same person who prophesied that there's this one like a son of man who's going to come riding on the clouds. And so this chapter is really cool. So what we're going to do today is we are simply going to read through the chapter as a work of literature, right? And we're simply going to try to understand it in its context without actually figuring out what is the fulfilled prophecy, right? So we're not going to be comparing it. I mean, I might make references at some point just unintentionally, but we're going to do our very best to read the chapter as if we were people living prior to the fulfillment of the prophecy themselves, right? And then next week what we're going to do is I'm going to have a table that side by side shows the chapter and shows the event that it's prophesying. And that's one reason why we're spending 2 weeks on this, is because I did not have time to finish the table. I've been working on it since last week, but whenever I've looked at how some pastors and stuff have handled it, they've been a little bit lazy with it, to where they've been saying certain things are fulfillments, and it was like you look it up and that event didn't actually happen. And so I'm trying to fact check everything to make sure that my sources are legit. And so that gives me another week to prepare that. But I think that'll actually be beneficial because one thing that I've noticed amongst a lot of Christian commentaries is that so many of them are focused on highlighting the fulfillment of the prophecy that they never actually take the time to ask, why was this prophecy even given? And they don't actually wrestle through it in its context and like in its purpose in the book of Daniel. They jump forward to like, oh look, this is how it was all fulfilled, and it's really cool. And that is really cool. But I think that does a disservice to the text, right? That's kind of like whenever people read Genesis 22 about the sacrifice of Isaac, and people just jump immediately to Jesus. And they say, oh, well, Abraham said that God was going to provide a sacrifice, and God did provide a sacrifice, and it was Jesus. Like, that's great. That's awesome. Awesome. That's cool. But for 1,000 years, people had to read that story without knowing about Jesus. And so our goal is to go through this chapter today, reading it from, ideally, Daniel's original audience's perspective. To where Daniel, he knows what these events are, like what they actually are. The people who read it, though, they have no idea. And for hundreds of years, they're simply living through history, and they're seeing it play out before their eyes. And then next week we'll come back and we'll, I guess we will read it from a New Testament perspective, where we're looking back and be like, hey, look, that's how it all played out. And so, quick recap. Oh, I forgot there was a pop-up on the screen, so I gotta go. Get it back over here. Alright, here's the timeline that we're dealing with. Same thing that you've seen in the past. Daniel's ministry spans the entire 70 years of Babylonian captivity, to where he is part of the Jewish people that first left during the first deportation, and he is going to be ministering through the beginning of the Persian period, which is where we're currently at in the story, right? You'll notice that the timestamps for chapters 10 and 11 are right there at the end of Daniel's ministry. We don't know when he actually died, so it's possible that he lived even longer than this, but we have pretty good reason to think that he's pretty old at this point, so he's probably going to kick the bucket sometime soon. Where we're at in the book, we are in the final section, right? The first 6 chapters are dealing with stories about Daniel. The final 6 chapters are dealing with visions, and those visions, there are 4 of them, and we are in the final one, right? So last week we saw the introduction to the vision, and that chapter, like even the introduction was pretty wild. To where it's almost like chapters 10 and 11 have the opposite problem, where chapter 11 is so specific that it's hard to read it without focusing on what is going on. Whereas chapter 10 is so vague that even when you do read it, you're having a tough time figuring out what exactly is going on at all. And so it's kind of funny when you compare that to where last week, almost every single thing we talked about, I was just like, I don't know. Like we just got to keep reflecting on it. To where chapter 10 is a very weird one. Chapter 11 is going to be a little bit more straightforward. And so, if you're looking right here, we are in the final A of the second chiasm of the book. And then at the end of today's section, going into chapter 12, that is going to bring the whole book to a close. Chapter 12 is only 13 verses long. And so after these 2 weeks in chapter 11, chapter 12, I mean, we'll probably just go more in depth, but there is a possible reality where we actually finish in less than 2 hours when we go through chapter 12. We'll see. And so that's where we're at. Sean, this is asking a lot of you because it's a long chapter. Do you mind reading through the whole thing?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'm going to give you the clicker so that you can be the master of the screen. Good luck. I probably should have warned you ahead of time, but
no, you're fine. I was like thinking there's like a 75% chance I would read through it all the way.
Yeah, So I feel like it's easier, like when you're dealing with like a vision that is like a full thing. Like it's good to have like the whole thing in mind so that you can better understand it as you're reading through. So.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. All right, buckle up, everybody. We're gonna be here for about 70 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
I'll live right now.
Now I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood to strengthen and to be a fortress for him. So now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings are going to stand in Persia. Then a 4th will gain far more riches than all of them. As soon as he becomes strong through his riches, he will arouse the whole empire against the kingdom of Greece. And a mighty king will stand, and he will dominate with great domination and do as he pleases. But as soon as he stands, his kingdom will be broken up and parceled out toward the 4 winds of heaven, but not to his own descendants, nor according to his domination with which he dominated, for his kingdom will be uprooted and given to others besides them. Then the king of the south will grow strong, along with one of his princes who will grow strong over him and obtain dominion. Indeed, His dominion will be a great dominion. And after some years, they will form an alliance, and the daughter of the king of the south will come to the king of the north to carry out an equitable arrangement. But she will not retain her position or power, nor will he continue to stand with his power, but she will be given up, along with those who brought her in and the one who fathered her, as well as he who strengthened her in those times. But one of the descendants of her line will stand in his place, and he will come against their military force and enter the fortress of the king of the north, and he will deal with them and display strength. And also their gods with their metal images and their desirable vessels of silver and gold he will bring into captivity to Egypt. And he, on his part, will stand back from attacking the king of the north for some years. Then the latter will enter the kingdom of the king of the south, but will return to his own land. And his sons will wage war, so they will gather a multitude of great forces, and one of them will keep on coming and overflow and pass through, that he may again wage war up to his very fortress. And the king of the south will be enraged and go forth and fight with the king of the north. Then the latter will cause a great multitude to stand, but that multitude will be given into the hand of the former. Then the multitude will be carried away, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cause tens of thousands to fall, yet he will not prevail. And the king of the north will again cause a much greater multitude than the former to stand. And at the end of the times of those years, he will keep on coming with a great military force and much equipment. Now in those times many will stand against the king of the south. The violent ones among your people will also lift themselves up, in order to cause the vision to stand, but they will fall down. Then the king of the north will come, cast up a siege ramp, and capture a well-fortified city. And the might of the south will not stand, not even their choicest troops, for there will be no strength to make a stand. But he who comes against him will do as he pleases, and no one will be able to stand in opposition to him. He will also stand for a time in the beautiful land, with destruction in his hand. And he will set his face to come with the authority of his whole kingdom, bringing with him an equitable proposal, which he will put into effect. He will also give him the daughter of women to destroy it, but she will not take a stand for him or be on his side. Then he will turn his face to the coastlands and capture many, but the ruler will make his reproach against him cease. Moreover, he will repay him for his reproach. So he will turn his face toward the fortresses of his own land, but he will stumble and fall and be found no more. Then in his place one will stand who will have an oppressor pass through the jewel of his kingdom. Yet within a few days he will be broken, though not in anger nor in battle. And in his place a despised person will stand, to whom the splendor of the kingdom has not been given, but he will come in a time of ease, and take hold of the kingdom by intrigue. But the overflowing might will be flooded away before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. And after an alliance is made with him, he will practice deception, and he will go up and gain power with a small force of people. In a time of ease, he will enter the richest parts of the province, and he will do what his fathers never did, nor his fathers' fathers. He will distribute plunder, spoil, and possessions among them, and he will devise his schemes against strongholds, but only for a time. And he will stir up his strength and heart against the king of the south with a great military force. So the king of the south will wage war with an extremely large and mighty military force for war, but he will not stand. For schemes will be devised against him. And those who eat his choice food will break him, and his military force will overflow, but many will fall down slain. And as for both kings, their hearts will be intent on evil, and they will speak falsehood at the same table. But it will not succeed, for the end is still to come at the appointed time. Then he will return to his land with great possessions, but his heart will be set against the Holy Covenant, and he will take action and then return to his own land. At the appointed time he will return and come into the south. But this last time, it will not happen the way it did before. Indeed, ships of Kittim will come against him. Therefore he will be disheartened and will return and become indignant at the Holy Covenant, and take action. So he will come back and show regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. Mighty forces from him will stand, profane the sanctuary fortress, and abolish the regular sacrifice. And they will set up the abomination of desolation, and by smooth words he will turn to godlessness those who act wickedly towards the covenant. But the people who know their God will display strength and take action. And those who have insight among the people will give understanding to the many. Yet they will fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder for many days. Now when they fall, they will be granted a little help, and many will join them in intrigue. And some of those who have insight will fall, in order to refine, purge, and make them pure until the time of the end, because it is still to come at the appointed time. Then the king will do as he pleases, and he will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will speak astonishing things against the God of gods. And he will succeed until the indignation is finished, for that which is decreed will be done. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, or for the desire of women, nor will he show regard for any other god, for he will magnify himself above them all. But instead, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god whom his fathers did not know. He will honor him with gold, silver, costly stones, and desirable things. And he will take action against the strongest of fortresses with the help of a foreign god. He will give great honor to those who recognize him, and will cause them to rule over the many, and will apportion land for a price. And at the time of the end, the king of the south will collide with him, and the king of the north will storm against him with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. And he will enter lands, overflow them, and pass through. And he will also enter the beautiful land, and many countries will fall, but these will be rescued out of his hand: Edom, Moab, and the foremost of the sons of Ammon. Then he will send forth his hand against other countries, against the land, and the land of Egypt will not escape. But he will rule over the hidden treasures of gold and silver, and over all the desirable things of Egypt. And Libyans and Ethiopians will follow at his heels. The reports from the east and from the north will dismay him, and he will go forth with great wrath to destroy, devote many to destruction. And he will pitch the tents of his royal pavilion between the seas and the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him.
Woo! Good job, Sean.
Wow.
Where it's starting to...
Yes. Yeah.
It's
It's always at the end where you're like, ah.
Okay, yeah. Stop reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's how I felt whenever we were reading through Esther.
Yeah.
It's just like, ugh.
Oh yes, yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, especially with having the mask on. It's terrible. All right, can you scroll back to the beginning of it? So, what happens here? You don't break every single thing down. Just broad summary.
Political intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of Game of Thrones type stuff.
Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah. So who seem to be the main players here?
So I would
King
say
of the North and the King of the
King of the, so that's after, and again, stop going into too much detail, but that's after.
We're not getting into the. So we're not talking about what the actual prophecy is today. That's what you're jumping to.
Okay.
Just for right now, we can
keep
keep
doing. Okay, that's that.
For now, we can simply say King of the North, King of the South.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
There is going to be a temptation today to jump forward and say, "Oh, I know who this is." That's awesome. I'm glad you do. Save it for next week.
There's going to be. It seems like there's going to
Just
be a
refer
great.
to them as like Jon Snow and
Okay.
Joffrey.
Okay. So there's going to be a great king, and it seems like he's going to die, and he's not going to have time to delegate to his sons or to anybody he wishes.
So that's one part of it.
It was like in the very beginning.
Yes.
So in the very beginning, and then it's the King of the North and the King of the South.
Yeah. So basically, there ends up being like Persia falls, and then there's this king. He dies. Everything splits up. You don't really hear about, like it says that they're split up to 4 people, but you don't really hear about 2 of them. You mainly hear about the King of the North, King of the South, right? And they're basically fighting each other, and they have successors who are fighting each other, and then eventually there's one king who does some really messed up stuff, right? That's like the very condensed version of it. But now we're just going to go through and we're going to walk through this. We're going to try to go relatively quickly so that we can spend more time at the end just talking about why this prophecy was even given. Because obviously, since we're not going into the actual fulfillment of it, all we can do is just be like, what does it seem like Daniel's talking about here? You know, so we'll try to go through it relatively quickly. So, the first 2 verses we probably need to spend a little bit of time on because the prophecy doesn't start till the second half of verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood to strengthen and to be a fortress for him. Now I will tell you the truth. What's going on there?
It's very interesting wording.
It is. Who's speaking?
Daniel.
Is it?
Hey,
No, this
Could
is the
also-
angel. This is so this is the angel that came to visit Daniel. So in the last chapter, right, we had this angel who we suspect to be Michael, came and he kind of freaked Daniel out, and then the other angel, the messenger, he's like, "Get up, I have a prophecy to tell you," and then
Yeah.
this is what he's telling
Yeah. So this seems to be the second messenger speaking, right? This is one of those places where the chapter division really messes things up, because whenever we read, whenever we flip to the book of Daniel, what's that?
I said I wasn't here last week.
Yes. But whenever we flip to the book of Daniel and we read of something talking in the first person, we immediately think, oh, that's Daniel talking. But this is one of those places where you almost have to forget that chapter division's there, and you have to just read the previous verses, right? So, like Joseph pointed out, Daniel had this weird vision in last week's chapter, right? He is on the edge of the Tigris River. He sees this man standing before him, and the man is described in a way very similar to Jesus in Revelation chapter 1, right? To where his arms and his legs are like burnished bronze. His voice is like I think it says a multitude, right?
Yeah.
I'm in Revelation chapter 1 right now in my own personal reading, so I'm like getting them mixed up. Does it say his eyes are like a torch of fire, right? Rather than a flame of fire. Like it's
Body barrel and yeah.
yes, and then he has a garment on, and then he has like a gold belt, right? Daniel sees that, and he freaks out and falls over. And this is where interpreters are split, because people debate about whether there's 1, 2, or 3 angels in this chapter, right? We kind of landed at the conclusion that it seems like it's 2, right? The most common interpretation you'll hear is 1, to where the most common interpretation is that the person who Daniel sees is the person who talks to Daniel afterwards. But then it is a possibility that that person is a separate person from the person who speaks going onwards. But they're like, whenever the person starts speaking to Daniel, Daniel does not describe the person. And then a little bit later, he says, one who was like a son of man clothed in linen or something like that. He says, he started talking to me. And so then you have to figure out, is that person the same as the second person? Because it seems like he's very clearly not the first person, right? So we kind of landed at the conclusion that it seems like there's 2 people talking, right? Or there's 2 people that Daniel saw, right? One is the terrifying man that caused him to fall over, and then the second person is the one who talks for the rest of the chapter. And what was the main thing he communicated in the remainder of the chapter when he was talking to Daniel? Or what was the setup? Like, what led Daniel to receive this vision?
I believe he had been praying and asking.
Yeah, he'd been praying and fasting for 3 weeks, right, and mourning.
Yeah.
And so what did the guy say?
Yeah. So I guess long story short, he realizes that the time for the 7 years is basically up. So he's praying and fasting about it.
No, that was chapter 9.
Oh shoot.
Yeah. It gets kind of mixed up.
Yeah.
So chapter 9 is the one where Daniel realizes the 70 years are almost up, and the guy comes and tells him something. That's Gabriel.
Yeah.
This one is Daniel's been praying and fasting for 3 weeks, and then the guy shows up and says, "I started coming to you like the first day, but I got held up." And like there's this Prince of Persia person, not to be confused with like the video game in the movie, but there's like this Prince of Persia person who stopped him, and like they were like fighting each other. And then the only way he got past is that Michael showed up and just like, I guess, started fighting the prince for him. And so the guy was able to sneak past and finally get to Daniel. And so I kind of theorized that maybe Michael is the person that Daniel saw at the beginning. To where it's almost like Daniel got like a flash of like spiritual warfare going on, to where it's like Michael almost like escorted him all the way, and then like the guy finally broke through. I don't know if that's what's going on. I genuinely have zero idea. But the guy says, "I was sent here to give you a message and to let you know what's about to happen." And so chapter 10 ends with him saying this in verse 19. "O man of high esteem, do not be afraid. Peace be with you. Gather strength and be strong." And as soon as he spoke to him, Daniel received strength. And then he says, "Do you know why I came to you? But I shall now return to fight against the Prince of Persia. So I'm going forth, and behold, the Prince of Greece is about to come." So he's letting Daniel know, I don't have long. I've got to go back to fighting soon. But, real quick, I'm going to tell you something. However, I will tell you what is inscribed in writing of the truth. Now there is no one who exerts strength with me against these forces except Michael, your prince. And that's how chapter 10 ended. And so he says, the only person who's helping me fight here is Michael, so I need to get back to fighting with him. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you something. And then he says, now I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood to strengthen and to be a fortress for him. Now I will tell you the truth. And so this is the angel continuing to talk to Daniel, and he's describing what he himself had done. And what is he saying here?
He basically is fighting on Darius' behalf.
It seems like that's what's going on here. Which is interesting because we know that he was fighting the Prince of Persia. And Darius the Mede is, the Medo-Persian Empire, they're like a unified force. And so it seems like the Prince of Persia is almost opposed to Persia? I don't know. Whereas it's very clear that Michael the Prince, he is on the side of Israel. So I don't know. Once you get to the back half of chapter 2, the back half of verse 2 and onwards, I have a good idea what's going on. This part right here, I genuinely do not know. It is very weird language. Do y'all have any thoughts about it? Because it's just weird to me.
It's weird. Yeah, I don't get it either.
It's also weird because Daniel's vision, it says it was in the 3rd year of Cyrus, which would also be the 3rd year of Darius. Some people debate about whether or not Darius the Mede is the same as Cyrus the Great. We don't. So the name Darius in general, we don't know if it's a proper name or just a title. And the name just seems to be associated with king. And so some people debate about whether Darius the Mede is a separate person altogether, or if it's like a title for somebody who was like underneath Cyrus, or if it's just like the same person. To where earlier in the book, Daniel said, where was it at? Was it chapter... Oh, the end of chapter 6. So it said, so this Daniel enjoyed success in the kingdom of Darius and in the kingdom of Cyrus the Persian. And so people debate, is that saying, are Darius and Cyrus two separate people there? Or is it saying, like he's in the kingdom of Darius and Cyrus? It's the same, it's just two names for the same person. You know what I mean? Like, if I said, I am stood before my Lord and God. It's like, I'm talking about one person, but I'm using two titles. So...
It's true.
We don't know. But it does seem that the reign of Darius the Mede, at the very least, directly corresponds to Cyrus. And in chapter 10, it started off by saying that Daniel had this vision in the 3rd year of Cyrus, which would be the 3rd year of Darius. But right here, the angel says that he stood to strengthen and be a fortress for Darius in the 1st year of his reign, which would be 2 years earlier. And I don't know what to do with that information either. To where it's like he's recapping to Daniel something that had happened 2 years earlier, but I don't see why that's relevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is another place where I think people get so distracted talking about the fulfillment stuff afterwards that I don't see many people wrestling through that. And it annoys me. I imagine if I looked at some Jewish commentaries, they'd probably have better answers. But I haven't taken the time to look at those. But yeah, so do y'all have any thoughts about that? I'm totally fine with us not knowing the answer and just moving on, but...
I'm not gonna... I can sit here and speculate for 30 minutes, but... I don't have anything definitive, so...
Alright, well, let's move on, and see if we can figure out what's going on. So...
Is this... sorry, the last thing I was gonna say.
Yeah.
He said... So it said that no one else was fighting against the Prince of Persia besides Michael,
Your prince.
your prince, and then it ended by saying,
That's
how it ended. So could it be just saying that he started helping Michael in the 1st year of Darius, the him is Michael? Just it's a kind of a continuation.
Oh, okay.
No one is able to no one else is able to stand against the Prince of Persia except for Michael. Now I started helping him in the 1st year of Darius.
So he's like, I've been fighting for the last, I've been fighting along his side for the last 2 years.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And that could make sense, especially because that would explain why it says the 1st year of Darius, because that would also be the 1st year that the Prince of Persia is now in charge. You know what I mean? Because the 1st year of Darius would be the 1st year of the Medo-Persian Empire. And so the Prince of Persia is the one who's, the Elohim or the Son of God in charge of that. It would make sense that he's like, I've been fighting him for 2 years, and he's like, I gotta get back to it. But I gotta tell you some stuff first. That would make sense. Look at that. Paying attention to the pronouns. Good job, Sean.
Yeah.
So that actually would make more sense, where him refers to Michael, not to Darius.
Mhm.
I like it. Look at that. Boom. That's why Sean's here. He gives us the answers. Okay. Behold, 3 more kings are going to stand in Persia. What's that mean?
3 more kings are going to stand in Persia.
Very good. After Cyrus, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot of these are going to be pretty straightforward. At least because right now we're at least dealing with like a name, right? Persia. They exist, and so Persia. Okay, cool. 3 more kings. So after Cyrus, 3 more kings. Then a 4th will gain far more riches than all of them. What's that mean?
1 more king will come and have more gold.
Yes, the 4th king after Cyrus is going to be more
It's
powerful.
going to be greater and more powerful.
Yes. And as soon as he becomes strong through his riches, he will arouse the whole empire against the kingdom of Greece.
Wow, that sounds like someone we do.
Yep. So what's going to happen here?
He's going to be all powerful and mighty and say, let's go kill the Greeks.
Yes, so this 4th king is going to kick off a war against the Greeks. However, since we know where this story is ultimately heading... Is that for me? Oh, heck yeah. Since we know where the story is heading... since we know where the story is heading, how do we think this war is going to ultimately end?
Not good.
Not good for the Persians, right? Because the guy literally just told us in the previous chapter that the Prince of Persia is going to fall and then Greece is going to replace him. So,
It's true.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so as soon as he becomes strong through his riches, he will arouse the whole empire against the kingdom of Greece. So this 4th Persian king is going to wage war against the Greeks. And a mighty king will stand, and he will dominate with great domination and do as he pleases. Alright? So what's going on here?
He's talking about the separate king now.
Yes,
I guess the kingdom of Greece?
yes, a king from Greece.
Yes.
Yeah. So a king from Greece is going to rise up, and what do we learn about him?
He's mighty, he's going to do as he pleases, and he's going to dominate. And there's nobody that can really stop.
What does that sound like? Have we seen something like that in Daniel already?
Yes.
Yes.
Seems like one of the beasts.
Okay. But even more specific. It's another beast.
Like the,
vision.
There was 2 visions that was mentioned. The first one was the beast, right? And then there
Yes.
was another vision, which... Was
not
it
the
the...
ram, but
This
the
is
show.
chapter 8. Yeah, it's the ram and the goat.
Mhm.
Right? The ram represented who?
Persia.
Persia. And then the goat represented Greece, right? And so this is one of those places where if you're reading it, like, you can read it in light of past stuff, right? And so, if you remember, the ram, it looked unstoppable. Kind of like these kings from Persia that he's describing.
Mhm.
But then, there was the goat who moved quickly, conquered everything, demolished the ram. Well, that's going to be this king of Greece, right? And so he's going to give birth to a new empire. But if you remember, what did we see about the king of Greece with the ram and the goat? What was the deal with, like, what happened?
Didn't he like burn out quickly? Or something?
And while I was considering, behold, a male goat was coming from the west over the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground, and the goat had a conspicuous horn between its eyes. Then it came up to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing in front of the canal, and it ran with a strong wrath. And I saw each side of the ram, and it was enraged at it. And it struck the ram and broke its 2 horns in pieces, and the ram had no strength to stand in opposition to it. So it threw it down to the ground and trampled on it, and there was none to deliver the ram from its power. The male goat magnified itself exceedingly, but as soon as it was mighty, the large horn was broken, and in its place there came up 4 conspicuous horns towards the 4 winds of heaven. So what happened to the goat?
It lost its big horn and it gained 4 little horns.
Yeah, as soon as it became strong, it was broken, and then it was split into 4 different horns. Alright, we continue reading. But, verse 4, as soon as he stands, his kingdom will be broken up and parceled out to the 4 winds of heaven. Hey, who does that sound like?
The 4 horns.
It sounds like the goat, right, from chapter 8, right? And so you can tell it's the same story, right? And then this is where it's cool because when we were in chapter 8, we talked about who was the fulfillment of that. Next week, we'll talk about it again. You probably already know who it is. So as soon as he stands, his kingdom will be broken, parceled out to the 4 winds of heaven. What does it mean, 4 winds of heaven?
North, south, east, west.
North, south, east, west. And ironically, when we talk about fulfillment, there is actually kind of a literal element to that. But in general, even if it wasn't literal, what does it mean?
It's gonna be extremely widespread.
Yeah, they just go in every direction.
Yeah, everywhere.
Right? They spread out, right? You say something about like Tower of Babel, right? They were dispersed. And so they're going to be spread out, but not to his own descendants. So what's the deal there?
So this isn't like a formal transit. Like I'm trying to think of the word. Like whenever you just pass the kingdom on to your kids.
Succession.
Yeah, it's
Succession,
not
yeah.
succession.
He can't. He doesn't promote a successor.
Yeah, it's not like an heir. It's not like David giving the throne to Solomon,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's gonna be a power struggle for it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not gonna be according to his domination with which he dominated. What does that mean? I think there's kind of two ways to view this.
I think one of the ways, at least, is that none of the four kingdoms are going to be as strong, like as
Mhm.
it is.
Yeah, so he was very swift and powerful. The people who take over, it's not going to be an overnight thing. So they're not going to dominate as quickly as he did. And even once they have control, none of them are going to have the power that he once had. Right? So they're all going to... It's not going to be like four people battling and then one of them eventually rules over all of it. It's going to be pretty divided. For his kingdom will be uprooted and given to others besides them. Right? And so ultimately what ends up happening?
Basically, neither his kids nor like the institution that's in charge currently is going to keep that kingdom. It's going to be like four. It's kind of like one kingdom becomes four just different things entirely.
Yeah. So even though we would call this the Greek Empire, it's not going to be very unified. Right? There's going to be several different splinter kingdoms operating at the same time. And they're going to end up warring against one another. So, then the king of the south will grow strong. What's it referring to when it says king of the south?
One of the four kings who rises up.
Yeah, so it said that they went, north, south, east, west and stuff. Well, this is the king of the south. So this is the king of the southern region. Whenever it says south and north, in general, where do you think it's, like, where's the geographical location that it's probably speaking from?
I'm generally speaking as south. I'm generally referring to like the area like Egypt-ish, right?
Okay. But I'm asking where are you gauging it from? Right? Because if I say I'm going...
like vantage point. Okay.
Yes.
So from like the centermost point of what the kingdom would have been is like what would have been the heart of the kingdom at the time it was splintered.
So there's a question. That's a big question, actually.
Are we going from the Abrahamic covenant?
So I think that this is going to shape how we interpret things, because later on, the text is going to refer to the jewel of the kingdom, which is kind of a reference to the most significant part of that kingdom, right? We have to ask, what is that, right? Naturally, we would think, well, probably like Babylon, right? Like that's the capital city. But we're not just reading a history textbook. Who is speaking here? Who's speaking to
One
Daniel?
of God's messengers.
It's one of God's messengers, right? So he's an angel.
So it might
And from an angel's perspective, where's the center of the world? Jerusalem, right? And so I would suggest that everything is from the vantage point of Jerusalem, right? And so later on, whenever it refers to the jewel of the kingdom, it's referring to Jerusalem, right? It is the, it's not the thing that everybody else prizes most, it's the thing that God values most, right? And so if Nebuchadnezzar were talking here, we might think, okay, it's Babylon. But this is an angel talking, and whenever we talk about the fulfillment next week, that'll be pretty evident. To where it's actually going to be hyper-literal in regards to south and north, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, the king of the south will grow strong, along with one of his princes, who will grow strong over him and obtain dominion. So what happens there?
Essentially, king of the south will go strong. One of his princes, this could be his son, or maybe someone he has made like a counselor or a general will grow stronger than him, and then essentially kill him, kick him out, and become.
So it doesn't necessarily say kill him.
Like heir is.
It doesn't
It's
necessarily
just
say kill him.
that
What does it say?
they'll basically supersede power. Like, I don't think it means in a violent overthrowing fashion. I think that it just means that like the people in the kingdom of the south will prop him up
Yeah.
above the king.
Yeah. So it doesn't even say that it's going to. I mean, it says you're strong over him, but it doesn't really say it's going to usurp him. The idea is that he just becomes more powerful. Like he was under the king of the south, but he rises up to be more powerful, and he also gains dominion for himself.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because it's about to say that they form an alliance with one another, and so they're going to be in charge of two different areas, right? But this guy is going to rise up, and he is kind of usurping an amount of power, but he's not totally displacing the other guy.
Kind of like how we saw with Belshazzar in Babylon.
Yeah, kind of like that. Except we have good reason to think that this guy isn't willfully handing over the dominion, like Belshazzar's dad did. Indeed, his domain will be a great dominion. So what do we learn about the second guy, this prince?
He's gonna be powerful.
It's going to be a really big. He's going to be in charge of a lot of stuff, and this is probably in comparison to the king of the south, and it's suggesting that his dominion is going to be even greater, right? And after some years, they will form an alliance. Okay, so what are they going to do after a few years?
Form an alliance.
Very good. And the daughter of the king of the south will come to the king of the north to carry out an equitable arrangement. So what happens?
So is this saying the king of the north is that guy, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, that prince has become the king of the north, and so the idea is like this guy's king of the south. He was kind of probably in charge of this area. This guy rose up, and now that's his, right? And so now there's the king of the north, king of the south, and so this is kind of the enmity that we're talking about in verses 3 and 4, right?
So it seems like they come to an agreement. So the king of the south will give his daughter to the king of the north and carry out like a marriage arrangement, which is common around this time period.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's part of the peace treaty, right? Basically, the king of the south sends his daughter up to the north to get married, and this is a sign that they are now buddies. And ideally, it's so that, long term, why would the king of the south want to do this?
So that he can, retain some power and hopefully pass his kingdom on to, or he wants his, daughter to give birth to the heir that will take over the north.
Yeah. So the king of the north, now he's married to the king of the south's daughter. They have a kid. Well, now that's his, grandson. And so then whenever he passes it down to his heir, and now it's like basically he's consolidating power in their family. So that's usually why those political alliances would be advantageous, right? It wasn't just about like, hey, let's be friends and marry each other. It's like, well, no, we're merging families, right? To where it's consolidating power. But she will not retain her position of power. So what's going to happen to this daughter?
She loses.
She loses her power.
Yeah, somehow she loses her status, right? Like the thing that made her important. Nor will he continue to stand with his power. Who is this referring to?
The north.
So
the daughter
It
and
just
the king of the
says
north.
it doesn't really.
So this is one thing that we're gonna
Kind of vague.
run into. There are certain places where it is very vague, to where it's like, wait, which person is not going to retain power here? And even later on, there are places where the translation will add in the phrase "the latter" and "the former," and that is purely the translators trying to make sense of things, whereas in reality it just says he. But using an educated guess, who has the most to lose if this woman is forsaken?
The king of the south.
The king of the south, right? He's the one who sent his daughter to form this alliance. And so, for now, we can just suggest that he's probably the one who is losing his power, right? Because the whole reason he would want to do this is to gain power, but if she's given up, he loses that power, right? Whereas the king of the north can just go marry somebody else. And so, so she will be given up, along with those who brought her in, and the one who fathered her, as well as he who strengthened her in those times. What's going on there?
family?
Yeah, her and her family, her attendants, her servants, all of them are deposed, right? And given up might even imply something stronger, right? It could imply
Like
Like-
sold?
like given up unto death or something like
Oh.
that. Or it could be sold. Like it's vague, but the idea is that like she has no power now, right? She's totally given over. Verse 7. But one of the descendants of her line will stand in his place.
So the king of the south's place.
If
we assume that he's the
Yes.
one not standing.
Yes.
Because it also, based
Well,
on what we're about to read.
The language here, I actually... That's why I was hesitant, because there's been some places where they remove the physicality of the language. I'm pretty sure the verse here, it literally says like a branch from her roots, not one of her descendants. That's why I was... Yeah. Yes, but a branch from her roots will stand in his place. So this is talking about the king of the south, but what is a branch from her roots? This is talking about this girl.
Your kid?
So what are her roots?
Oh, gotcha. It's like her, like parents.
Her roots would be her parents, and so a branch from her roots would be
Like a brother.
a sibling. Yeah. So one of her brothers will stand in her father's place, right? And so if you're
Her father will get deposed, but he will come up in his place.
yes, that's why like the language "one of the descendants" like that annoys me, because that's language that you would find elsewhere. Like in Genesis, you would expect that to be like one of the seed, but it's literally a branch from the roots, which
Yeah.
whenever you look at the fulfillment of it, literally it makes more, it's literally a brother.
Yeah.
So
I guess it also, because it says her line versus like her roots.
yes, yeah. So a branch from her roots will stand in his place. So this is the king of the south's place, and he will come against their military force. So whose military force?
North.
King of the north. Why might he be motivated to do this?
Because his mother got deposed.
Well, his sister,
His
right?
sister.
So the king of the north, he did something like he insulted the family, and so now this brother is in the dad's place, and he's like, okay, it's time to fight, and so he's going to march against them. He will come against their military force and enter the fortress of the king of the north. So who does it look like is winning that battle?
South.
King of the south is winning, and he will deal with them and display strength. So he is a formidable force that they should be terrified of. And also, their gods, with their metal images and their desirable vessels of silver and gold, he will bring back into captivity to Egypt. So what's he going to do?
He's going to take all their riches and their gods and everything of value and bring it back to Egypt in the south.
Mm-hmm. Let me check here. Yeah. What does the language "bring back" suggest?
That I would suggest that maybe the kingdom of the north had invaded the kingdom of the south and brought it out of Egypt and had taken it for themselves, and then now it's being repossessed again.
Yeah. So it could imply that he's just taking them back, but it more likely implies that they had been taken from the south first, and he's returning them. Right?
Is it bring back? Because it just says on there, it just says bring.
Wait, what verse was it again? 8?
8, yeah.
Wait, oh, hold up. It does only say bring. Desirable vessels, silver and gold, he will cause to bring. Oh. And I think the language actually is like to come in, but I guess it doesn't even say back. I could have sworn I just read back whenever I read it out loud. That's funny. Okay, well, spoiler alert for the fulfillment. He's bringing stuff back.
I think
Yeah.
I think because it says we'll stand.
That's probably what it was. I was probably reading,
Yeah.
because it says, and he on his part will stand back from attacking them. Maybe I was like reading about, like, I have no idea. Like, I know I saw the word back for some reason, but okay.
But so either way, he's taking it back.
Yeah, he is going to bring it back. Spoiler alert for what actually happened. But he's causing them to come in, is what it actually says. He'll bring into captivity to Egypt, and he on his part will stand back from attacking the king of the north for some years. So what's he going to do after this?
He's gonna
relent. He's not gonna.
He's going to stand back and just not fight for a while. Then the ladder. Okay, so this is a place where, again, they're inserting the ladder there. In Hebrew, it just says he. Then he will enter the kingdom of the king of the south. So they're trying to help it make sense for us, which that stuff annoys me. Like, to me, I think the text is intentionally being vague. In which case, you have to honor that, right? But modern translators are so, like, they're determined to treat everybody like elementary schoolers. And so they're trying to make it as easy to understand as possible because that's what people want. That drives me mad. Anyways, then he will enter the kingdom of the king of the south, but will return to his own land. So what happens there?
So kingdom of the north will enter the kingdom of the south, but it doesn't seem like he completely dominates the kingdom of the south, so he just returns after doing some damage.
He goes down there, it seems like he's attacking or something like that, but he eventually just returns. And so we don't know what happened, but for some reason he went back. Alright, next slide. And his sons will wage war. Whose sons?
Sons of the king of the north.
Yes, presumably the kings of the north at this point. So they will gather a multitude of great forces, and one of them will keep on coming and overflow and pass through. So one of who?
Kings of the north.
One of the sons, right?
Of the
So
of the north.
it seems like this is talking about two sons, and they're both going to wage war, but one of them in particular is going to keep on coming and overflow and pass through.
Okay.
So what does that suggest about the sons?
So I want to go back. So where do you get two sons from?
It says his sons.
It just has his sons. That could imply more.
It could imply more, but just the fact that it goes on and says and one of them, which would suggest that, I mean, it could be still talking about like 3 or 4 or 5, but at the very least it suggests 2. That's all I was suggesting.
Okay.
Yeah. But what do we learn about one of these guys? One of the sons.
He utterly destroys the south.
Yeah, so one of them is more powerful than the others.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll overflow and pass through, that he may again wage war up to his very fortress.
Okay, and when we talk about sons, I'm assuming we're talking about generational, right? Would be the assumption, or are we talking about in the same generation?
It doesn't specify. Even though, spoiler alert for the actual fulfillment, it is going to be 2 sons from the same king. So it's going to be referencing,
It's
literally
the same generation.
Yeah, so basically one son is going to die and then the brother is going to take over. And so it's one of those places where it could be read either way, but it's actually being more literal than you would expect. It's literally his
House
sons.
of the Dragon.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, the Bible just gives you, like, you could easily have a biblical Game of Thrones, and it'd be just as violent and crazy and going by Genesis, incestuous. So when we've been doing the podcast, we've been talking about how incestuous Abraham's family is. It is wild. Like, I don't think people appreciate, like, it's crazy. Like, they are just intermarrying out of the wazoo. Like, no wonder the age limit is, like, going down very quickly. It's like, it's wild. It's actually more remarkable that they were, like, also good looking. That's just crazy.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry, back to this. So they'll gather a multitude of great forces. One of them will keep on coming and overflow and pass through. He may again wage war up to his very fortress. So this is the kings of the north. One of them is really powerful. He makes it all the way down to the king of the south's land. And the king of the south will be enraged. And he will go forth and fight with the king of the north. So how does the king of the south respond?
He's like, I don't like this. I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, he doesn't like this, so he fights back. Then the latter will cause a great multitude to stand. Okay, so this, again, it's then he will cause a great multitude to stand. Who's referring to?
North.
No, the king of the north, right? So the king of the north will cause a huge multitude to stand. So this is talking about like an army, right? But that multitude will be given into his hand. They say the former because they're just over-explaining things. But who is his hand in this case?
South.
The south, right? So the king of the north is apparently going to have a bigger army, but the king of the south is going to win. Does that make sense? Then the multitude will be carried away. So what's going to happen?
The north's multitude is going to be carried away into captivity.
Yes, so they're going to be carried away by the king of the south, and his heart will be lifted up. Whose heart?
Kings
Which king?
of the north.
South.
It'd be the south, right? Because the south is the one who just had victory. Right?
Oh, gotcha.
The king of the north just had a really big defeat, so he's probably not going to be getting cocky right now. The king of the south, though, he had an unexpected victory, right? He had a smaller army, but he won. And so now he gets really cocky, lifted up. He will cause tens of thousands to fall, yet he will not prevail. So what happens there?
So he's going to cause a lot of destruction, kill a lot of people, yet he won't succeed.
Yeah, so he's going to be very victorious in battle, but his kingdom as a whole, will, like his reign, will not be a victorious one in the end. And the king of the north will again cause a much greater multitude than the former to stand. So what's the king of the north do?
Comes back with a bigger army.
Yeah,
Even
so he
bigger
rallies
army.
an even bigger army, and he's going to try again. And at the end of the times of those years, he will keep on coming with a great military force and much equipment. And so we get the impression that this guy, he rallies up the troops and he goes for it again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in those times, many will stand against the king of the south. All right, what's happening there?
He's saying there's going to be a lot of people who stand against the king of the south. Two ways I interpret this: one being inner southern kingdom conflict, or it can be interpreted as many kings from the north will come and attack the king of the south. I'm more inclined to believe the latter.
So you get the impression that the king of the north isn't the only one opposing the south, right? Like there's going to be a lot of conflict going on.
Very external.
Yeah. It doesn't specify where it's coming from, but it just says, in those times, many will stand against the king of the south. So we know already the king of the north is.
I think so. I actually think that line is more so pointing to external, like foreign kings who will be battling against the king of the south, because it does bring up like internal conflict specifically in another line later on.
Okay.
Where it talks about like the violent ones in the south being raised up.
So it doesn't say the violent ones in the south. It says the violent ones among your people.
Oh.
And so we're going to talk about that in a second. I would say that it's probably a mixture of it doesn't specify whether it's internal or external. It could be both, right? We know at least the king of the north is there, but then it says many will stand, and so it could be other people joining the king of the north. It could be internal stuff where just people themselves are opposing their own king. But we do know at least that there is one other group of external people who are joining the king of the north, because that's what it specifies next. Mm-hmm. The violent ones amongst your people will also lift themselves up. Who is the angel talking to? Daniel. So who are the violent ones amongst your people?
The Jews.
The Jews, right? So there are some Jewish people who are going to raise up arms against the king of the south. Now, keep in mind, I've been talking about how, if Jerusalem is the center stage for all this, and there's the kings of the north and king of the south, and they're constantly going into battle against one another, where do you think this is taking place?
Jerusalem.
Well, in the land of Israel, right? There's a reason why people have always longed for the land of Israel. It's because it is the one green strip of land that connects three continents, right? Europe, Asia, Africa. They're all connected right there. There's a sea on one side, there's a desert on the other. That land, like the land of Israel, there's a reason why everybody wants it, even to this day. And so a lot of the battles are going to be taking place here. This explains why the angel is telling Daniel this, right? Because you might be wondering, what the heck does this have to do with Israel? It has everything to do with Israel, because they're the ones who are caught in the middle of it, right? And so in this case, there are going to be some Jewish people who rise up, and they're going to join the king of the north, and they're going to fight against the guy in the south, right? And so they will lift themselves up in order to cause the vision to stand. So why is it that they rise themselves up? In order to cause the vision to stand. What does that seem to imply?
It's confusing.
Is it
What is
basically
that made of?
just like they're going to be trying to bring about a prophecy vision of some sort?
Well, what vision is he probably having in mind? What is Daniel currently experiencing?
Like the exile?
Well, no, like what is Daniel in the midst of right now?
Like war.
Or
No, he's having a vision, right?
Oh.
He is having a vision of an angel who is communicating all this stuff to him.
Mm-hmm.
So Daniel is in the middle of a vision, and the angel says, hey, in the future, there are some violent Jews amongst you who are going to rise up to cause the vision to stand. What does that probably imply? Like, what is their motive?
Daniel's words?
Well, yeah, they're reading the times, right? They're looking, and they're like, oh, like, they're looking, and it's like, they're like, oh, this is literally our, like, this is our history unfolding before our very eyes, and they're going to get caught up in the midst of this, and they're going to think, oh yeah, let's go fight. But they probably should have read more closely because it says, but they will fall down. And so it's not going to go so well for them, right? But it seems like their whole thing is that, like, one of their motives is religious, to where they're like, well, this is like our part in the story. We're going to fight. And that's why it's like the more violent ones. They're zealous for it, but ultimately they're not going to be successful. And so they're almost like martyrs in the end, to where they recognize their part in the story, they play their part well, and they're killed for it. That seems to be kind of what's implied there. Then the king of the north will come. He will cast up a siege ramp and capture a well-fortified city. So what happens next?
Takes over a very well defended city.
Yeah, so the king of the north, he continues his success. He lays a siege ramp. He captures a city. And the might of the south will not stand, not even their choicest troops, for there will be no strength to make a stand. So what happens to the south?
It falls.
It falls. It doesn't totally. It's not totally destroyed, but they lose the battle severely. Right? They literally there's waving the white flag. But he who comes against him will do as he pleases, and no one will be able to stand in opposition to him. Right? So who's this referring to?
King of the North.
The king of the north, right? The king of the north is the one who comes against the king of the south, who is not able to stand. He's going to do as he pleases. What does that mean?
He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of power, right? He's just freely roaming. He can do whatever he wants. And no one will be able to stand in his hand. So it's not only the king of the south who are unable to stop them, it's anybody, right? So this guy just has a lot of power.
Yeah, this is like the beast that we described earlier.
Yes. Yeah. He will also stand for a time in the beautiful land with destruction in his hand.
What chapter was it? What chapter was it where it mentioned a king that was also going to be in the beautiful land as well? I don't know if it's popped up multiple times, but at least one time.
There was a horn. Well, I think in chapter 8, wasn't there a horn that spoke blasphemous things that was from the kingdom?
Yeah, I would
If I'm
think
not
it's chapter 8.
I think this might be the same guy.
Yeah.
It's a guy from the north who
It's chapter 8, verse 9.
who out of all these kings we've talked about in the north and the south is the most dominant.
Yeah.
And he comes, says blasphemous things, and is very proud.
So this one it says, and out of one of them came forth a rather small horn, and it grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the beautiful land.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't say he stood there, but it says that it grew in that direction.
Gotcha.
And then that's the same guy who ends up cutting off the sacrifice and stuff like that later on for 2,300 evenings and mornings and stuff.
Gotcha.
And so, what does it mean when it says he'll stand for a time in the beautiful land?
He'll rule over
He'll reign.
Israel.
Yeah, he'll exercise power over the land of Israel, like the land of the Jews. And he's going to bring destruction with him.
Yeah.
And he will set, and what was the irony of that? Because who is it who's reigning over them? Who is this guy?
King of the
Not a
north.
trick question. King of the North. He's the king of the North.
The
What's
guy-
the irony there?
The Jews fought with him.
They fought with him, right? So they were fighting with him against the South, yet now he's ruling over them, right? And so it seems like that kind of backfired on them. And he will set his face to come with authority of his whole kingdom, bringing with him an equitable proposal which he will put into effect. All right, so what's he do?
He brings up some sort of equitable proposal, and we don't know the details of this yet.
We saw the language before, though. What is that referring to?
Marriage.
Some sort of peace treaty or alliance at the very least, right?
Yeah, striking some kind of deal with the people in Israel.
I don't know if it's referring to the people of Israel or the people of the South.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's vague enough to where it can go either way.
I guess the beautiful land can just be like a parenthetical. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So he brings with an equitable proposal, which he will put into effect. He will also give him. So I think it's the South because it says he will give him. So it's referring to the king of the South.
Gotcha.
And he will also give him the daughter of women to destroy it. So what's it do? It's kind of weird language, but
Daughter of
of women. Can I?
He's basically gonna try to undermine the proposal by giving him like, you know, young women to
Yeah.
sort of encourage infidelity.
So it's very similar to what we talked about before, right? Earlier, there's the king of the south who gave one of his daughters to the king of the north, and that fell through. Well, this time the king of the north is doing the same thing to the king of the south. He's giving one of his daughters to the king of the south, but his goals are malicious, right? To where his whole thing is that he is hoping that through this proposal that, like, really his daughter will still support him, right? That's his goal. His whole goal is, like, he is sending her there with the goal of usurping her, like, the authority of the people of the south. But she will not take a stand for him or be on his side. So what is happening?
It backfires.
It backfires. Turns out that she supports her husband now. And she does not support her dad. Then he will turn his face to the coastlands and capture many. So what does he do once that falls through?
He conquers.
Yeah, he turns to conquer, and specifically he's conquering like coastal areas. So if you're thinking of like the land of Israel, he's been focusing southwards, but now he's going to turn to the coastlands, which what do you think that would seem to imply?
He's trying to cut off all shipping.
That could be it, but I'm saying like what region are we thinking?
Like the land of the Philistines.
Maybe. I would actually
Like-
I would suggest that it's actually probably talking about the opposite direction. So if he's the king of the north and his southward stuff is not working, I'm thinking that it's talking more towards Turkey, right? Like the coastal regions right there, right? If you're,
That like Lebanon or Syria, maybe.
yeah. So Lebanon, Syria, and all going up towards there. Just because it's saying that like his southward stuff isn't working. So
That's
instead,
true. Philistines pretty far south.
yeah, the Philistines is all way down there. And so he decides to go after the coastlands instead, and he captures many. But a ruler will make his reproach against him cease. What happens there?
So a ruler will make his reproach against him cease. So it sounds like someone will rise up against him that was under his like power.
Yeah. Well, what does it mean, reproach against him? What is?
Fight against.
Yeah. So it seems like this is somebody he was trying to conquer, right? So it seems like this guy's trying to prove a point, and he's like, if I can't get the south, I'm going to go get this other stuff. So he's trying to flex his power, and in doing so, insult all these other coastlands.
Mm-hmm.
But one ruler from there is going to rise up and basically just like shut him up.
Gotcha.
And so this ruler, he's not a king of the north or king of the south. He is a ruler from the coastlands who rises up and stops the king of the north, and basically puts an end to his arrogance there. Moreover, he will repay him for his reproach. So what does that mean?
He's gonna punish him. Probably death.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, he'll do some good damage in return.
Yeah, so he's going to add insult to injury, right? You insulted me, I insult you. So this guy the king of the north set out to prove a point and to flex his power, but as a result of what this guy does to him, he's going to be the one who is end up being left ashamed and like running home to mama and dad. So he will turn his face toward the fortress of his own land, but he will stumble and fall and be found no more. So what happens there?
He dies going back home.
Yeah, so he goes back home, but he dies. And you'll notice it doesn't say that he dies in a battle or anything like that. Just something happens to where he dies and he's just wiped out, right? And so he's running home to probably like try to rally the troops again and rebuild, but he finally reaches his end. And so this guy sounds pretty powerful because he's been with us for quite a bit here, but he kind of reaches a disappointing end. All right, moving on. Then, in his place, so whose place is this?
South.
North, the king of the north, right? Then in his place, one will stand who will have an oppressor pass through the jewel of his kingdom. Alright, so we got another king of the north now, and what does he do?
A cruel person will pass through, presumably Jerusalem, but the jewel of his kingdom. But
Yeah.
he does rule over Israel, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so the previous king of the north, he's the one who established power over the beautiful land. And so the king of the north now has power over it. And so it seems like the jewel of his kingdom would be a reference to Jerusalem. The word for oppressor here, it's kind of a weird word, to where oppressor is fine, but it could also be like a taskmaster or like an exactor. So it's like I don't want you to think it's just like oppressor in regards to like a military person. It's more like a government official, right?
So someone in this government essentially just overpowers them.
Yeah. Well, no, he doesn't overpower him. He's sent on a mission, right? So the king of the north sends this guy to Jerusalem. Yet within a few days he will be broken, though not in anger nor in battle.
So it seems like there's some sort of rebellion going on.
Okay, who is it who's being broken here?
The official that's sent to Jerusalem.
Is it? So it's pretty vague, but again, spoiler alert for the fulfillment of this. The he here is actually a reference to the king of the north. And what's even crazier that Daniel doesn't even mention here is that the very person who kills the king of the north is the exactor who passed through Jerusalem, which is crazy. Like, it's wild to me that he doesn't even mention that, but external history tells us that the very person that this guy sends to Jerusalem is also the person who later assassinates him, which is crazy. So it says, in a few days he will be broken, though not in anger nor in battle, right? So this king, he is going to fall, but it's not going to be his own doing, and it's not going to be in the middle of a battle, right? Something else is going to happen that's going to cause him to fall. And like I said, it's spoiler alert, assassination. And in his place, so whose place is this?
King of the North.
King of the North. In the King of the North's place, a despised person will stand. Despised. From whose perspective?
We'll assume from
Everyone's.
God's perspective, since this is an angel giving this message.
Yeah. It probably is a mixture of both everyone's and God's in particular. To where this person, as we're going to see, not a great person at all.
Like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, let's not go there.
He is our president, and we should pray for him. And in his place, a despised person will stand, to whom the splendor of the kingdom has not been given. So what do we learn about this guy?
He's a usurper.
He's a usurper, right? So he's not he was not the heir to the throne. Whenever the previous guy died, he was not like the next in line. So if the kingdom was not given to him, he took it.
He's basically going to rise. He says taking it by intrigue. He's basically going to use tricks and lie and cheat to get to the top.
Yeah. So he will come in a time of ease and take hold of the kingdom by intrigue. So he usurps the throne, but he doesn't do it through battle. How does he do it?
Cheating, schemes, tricks.
Yeah, he's just a classic politician, right? So think Absalom and how Absalom took the throne from David, right? He went out and he talked with the people and he won over their hearts. And so this guy, he's going to rise to power, but people aren't going to view him necessarily as a usurper. Some people might, but not everybody. Some people are going to love him. But the overflowing might will be flooded away before him and broken, and also the prince of the covenant. What's going on there?
Is the overflowing might his, or is it other people's? Will be flooded away before him and broken.
Honestly, don't
His
know.
might, it seems like his might will flow away from him and to be broken. So it seems like it's going to be given to somebody else, and then they're going to essentially snap or die. And then, and also the Prince of the Covenant, and I wonder who that person is.
Yeah. I was looking into the Hebrew real quick. This verse is just weird to me.
Just because it doesn't really seem like he's like losing all his power right here.
It seems
Yeah.
like he loses it, and it's broke. It's weird. Like it seems like it's almost should be like power should flow from one person to another, and why is it broken unless he's conquered by an external force?
Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head.
Which doesn't specify there's an external force, so
Did the Hebrew help at all?
It didn't help. No, I wish. I'll Let me pull it up again. It
And
was,
then there's this Prince of the Covenant person.
yeah. So, the word for force, like, what is it? Might, I guess? I'm trying to see how they're
Might.
translating it. Like, the word there, it just means arm.
Mm.
But it can be like forces and stuff, but it's just the word for arm.
So it's just like the.
Yeah, the overflowing arm will be overflowed. But, like, it's just like, it's the verb and the noun the same.
Oh.
To where it's like the setef and sataf. So it's like the overflowing arm will be overflowed from before his face and broken. Yeah, I have no idea. We're now getting beyond the point where I've actually looked into the fulfillment stuff.
Gotcha.
But the language is weird. Anyways, moving on past that. So something's going to happen. To me, it seems to suggest that he's not going to be as powerful as he could be. Right? Like, something's being broken to where he's not like... He doesn't become like an emperor. He doesn't like esteem to like the, one of the beasts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the Prince of the Covenant will be broken before him. What is that referring to, do you think?
Prince of the Covenant? No idea.
So far, there hasn't been a covenant mentioned in the passage, right?
Mm-mm. So whenever you hear covenant, what do you probably think of?
The
Since
promise.
it hasn't been mentioned so far.
Promise treaty to the death?
Well, you're probably thinking of one of the covenants that God's made.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume, right?
Yeah.
I know that there is debate about this this verse in particular from when I've looked into it. Like in regards to specifically who the Prince of the Covenant is.
Maybe like a descendant of David or something like that.
So I think usually people associate it with either a descendant of David or even like the high priest at the time. So just like basically, if the covenant is all the people of Israel, the prince is whoever's in charge of Israel at that time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So so it doesn't say the king of the covenant because that would be like the title for a son of David. But the prince is like it's not the Davidic covenant we're talking about. We're just talking about the person who is in charge of the people of the covenant, right?
That makes sense.
That seems to be how people interpret it. I don't know. But yeah, so that verse in particular is kind of strange. And we're going to get into a bunch of strange stuff going forward because we're really going to focus on this guy. And after an alliance is made with him, he will practice deception. So what happens?
He's going to keep on deceiving, and he's going to get a small force of people and get something started.
Yeah, so he makes some sort of peace treaty with somebody, some sort of alliance, but he breaks it. And then it says he goes up, he gains power with a small force of people, right? So somehow he breaks the covenant, he gathers together a group of people, and then he usurps even more power for himself. You get the idea that this guy's pretty power hungry.
He's also pretty conniving.
Conniving, yeah. In a time of ease, hey, we've heard that phrase before. In a time of ease, he will enter the richest parts of the province, and he will do what his fathers never did, nor his fathers' fathers. So what's this referring to?
He's going to be rich. He's going to be the richest guy in the whole kingdom. Like,
So what do you think it means when it says the richest parts of the province right there? Keep in mind how Israel has been referred to so far in the passage.
We're talking about as far as like fertile?
Yeah, well, how has Israel been referenced so far? It's been referenced twice.
The beautiful land.
The beautiful land and the jewel, right? Which are both associated with like riches.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume that the richest part of the territory right here is reference to the land of Israel, which also makes sense because it is also the most valuable part of the territory, right? I mean, you can lose all sorts of territory, but the part you do not want to lose is the land of Israel if you're like a conquering king, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a time of ease, he's going to go down into the land of Israel, and he will do what his fathers never did, nor his fathers' fathers. Emotionally, what does that suggest? Something that his fathers never did, nor his fathers' fathers.
Like it's just like so like
he's just so wealthy and so powerful.
what's the word? Like it just kind of shows like the I don't know. I can't think of it. Basically, just him doing like something so wicked that like
Yeah.
no one else would have dreamed of it.
Yeah, something despicable.
It's despicable. There
Yeah.
you go. It's the same way that the God describes in like Jeremiah, where he says like y'all done what like your fathers never did.
Yes. Yeah, so the idea is this guy's going to do something and he's going to do the unthinkable. Like he's going to do some messed up stuff.
Or when you read through Kings and it keeps going, the sins of this king were worse than his father's.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Unprecedented.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. He will distribute plunder, spoil, and possessions among them, and he will devise his schemes against strongholds, but only for a time. So what's he going to do?
He's going to keep scheming, gathering power, but eventually he's going to be stopped.
Yeah, so for a time period, he's going to be doing all this stuff, and he's got a plan in motion. And he will... What's that?
Is this saying that he will just like? Is he plundering Israel?
I think so. So it says distribute plunder, spoil, and possessions among them. So I don't know if he's like plundering them and giving it to somebody else, or if he's like tying to his scheming. It could be that he's trying to make it like, oh, I really like y'all. You know, like he's sucking up to them a little bit.
I see.
I'm not sure. To me, the language almost seems like he's giving it to them because it says among them, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would agree with you as far as like language wise. That's what it looks like it's reading. It's just
Yeah, to where it's almost like he's giving things up to him, and then it says, and he will devise his schemes against the strongholds, but only for a time. To where it could be that it's like he's buttering them up, but he's devising schemes in the background of like how he's gonna, like betray them or something like that.
I see.
But again, with a lot of this stuff, it is kind of vague to where you could see it going either way. And in either way, when it's fulfilled, it's still hyper specific. You know what I mean? To where it's like, I mean, the fact that he did one of those is crazy. Like, because it's more the character of the kings that is the most impressive part, right? To where there's ambiguity in what exactly the event looks like, but you're getting the portrait of these successive kings. And when that shows up, you're like, that's crazy. Like, yes, that king was known for doing exactly that sort of thing. You know what I mean? And it's also kind of like the passage we were talking about in Genesis 25, where it says, the older shall rule the younger. Like, there's ambiguity there, but when it's fulfilled, you're like, okay, I see now. And it doesn't take away from, like, it's not like the whole Nostradamus so vague that it, like, anybody could have predicted it. Like, even with all the vague stuff, I could never have predicted this sort of thing. You know what I mean? Because it's still too specific. He's not just saying, hey, there's going to be deceptive politicians out there. He says, there's going to be a fourth one, and he's going to be like this, and then the fifth one's going to be like this, and the sixth one, he's going to be really deceptive, and the seventh one, more powerful. Like, it's very specific. Okay. Verse 25. And he will stir up his strength and heart against the king of the south with a great military force. So what does the king do?
He's going to go attack the south.
Attack the king of the south again.
For the Lord knows how many time we've seen.
And the king of the south will wage war with an extremely large and mighty military force for war, but he will not stand, for schemes will be devised against him. So what happens?
So the south, so when he says, but he will not stand, we're going to talk about he was referring to the king of the south.
King of the south, yeah.
So the north will fight against the south. The south might even have a bigger army, but because of the scheming, the north still comes out on top.
Yeah. Yeah, so the king of the south, he is like amassing this huge army. He's wanting to fight back, but it sounds like there's something internally that cripples him. But it would seem to suggest. I mean, I guess the schemes could be coming from the outside. But
or maybe something to do with him going into Israel and doing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And those who eat his choice food will break him, and his military force will overflow, but many will fall down slain.
Okay, so when it says those who eat his choice food will break him, I believe it's referring to like an internal conflict or scheme.
Yeah. So this is probably somebody in his family or somebody who's like noble, right? So an internal scheme. In spite of all of his mounting power, he's destroyed from within. And his military force will overflow, but many will fall down slain. The overflow, I'm assuming that's the same language from earlier.
I was going to say, the word seems to come up a lot.
I think it's just the language of like, I think of like the old, the battle movies where you see like these armies like galloping down the hills.
Like water flowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Like that's why I'm imagining it's supposed to be like conjuring up in your head. And so his military force will be strong, but many are going to fall anyways. And as for both kings, their hearts will be intent on evil. So what do they have in common?
They're not good guys.
They're not good guys. They both suck.
There is no good guy.
Yeah. And they will speak falsehood at the same table. What does that suggest?
I
They're
guess
both gonna lie
they're
to
both-
each other.
they're both gonna I guess they're both gonna form some sort of alliance and be in cahoots.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they're at least going to sit down and talk, but they're just lying to one another through their teeth.
They're just like, I'm here to make a treaty, and they're like both holding knives behind their
Yeah.
backs.
But it will not succeed, for the end is still to come at the appointed time. That's interesting. So,
Yeah, it's like a John moment.
yeah. Explain what you mean by that.
Oh, yeah, I should probably clarify. Just throughout the Gospel of John specifically, like, Jesus will constantly mention how his hour has not yet come. And so, we still don't know, exactly how certain events planned out, but a lot of times it says that Jesus, avoided being arrested because his time hadn't come yet.
Yeah.
And so there's like this appointed time. And so in the same way, it's just like, it's also just kind of clarifying like God's behind all of this.
Yes.
And so like even behind the scenes, God is like, he's in control, and he's saying there is an appointed time for these things.
Well, and that's what I was wanting to get at this point, because we have to ask ourselves, again, why is Daniel being told all this stuff? And it's because, this stuff sounds chaotic. And if you are living through history at this time period, even nowadays, right? In our current culture, all you do is turn on the news and you're like, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart. This is crazy, right? But if you're the people of Israel living through all of this, you might be really confused, especially because Daniel's visions so far have made it sound like everything's like unified. It's like, okay, well, there's going to be the Babylon, there's going to be Persia, then there's going to be Greece, and then there's going to be this fourth beast and stuff. And so you might be left with the impression that it's like, okay, there's these empires that rise and fall, but like everything's going to be stable during that.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're going to go back to their land, and they're going to be just like pinballing back and forth between King of the North, King of the South, and like people are just going to be rising and falling and stuff like that. And this empire is super disjointed. And you might be tempted as a Jewish person to think, where is God? Right? Like God made it sound like everything was going to be all unified, and like we realized it was going to be bad, but like what is this? It seems all messed up. Whereas God is clear, like he's giving this prophecy to clarify, yeah, in the midst of all of this, I'm in control. Which is crazy because you know who's not in control? All these kings in the story, right? Every time it's like they swell up in pride and they're mounting up their armies and then they fall. And a lot of the times it's not even just from dying in battle. It's from something else. It's like they're over here like succeeding in all these ways, and then something from within destroys them. And so there's like this message underlying all of it where you're learning that empires will rise and fall, kings will rise and fall, kings will war against one another, and they will think they're in charge, but not a single one of them is in charge. But through all of that, God's in charge. And the way you know that is because he predicted it ahead of time. To where if you're a Jewish person and you're wondering where's God in all of this, all you have to do is read Daniel 11. And you're like, oh, okay. I see that God, these guys are literally just puppets on a string. And God is using them to demonstrate his glory. So that as you're seeing this unfold before your eyes, you're realizing, okay, well, that means that the 77's prophecy was also true. And you're being reminded that God is still in control. And keep in mind, during all of this, the people of Israel, they're going to be suffering, right? They're going to be rising up to fight, and they're going to die in battle. And they're going to be oppressed by these kings of the north and king of the south. And they're not going to be their own independent nation. Mm-hmm. But in all of that, they're being reminded that God is still in charge. Right? And so even though there's no son of David sitting on the throne, God's still the one in charge of all of it. And so I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, if God appointed times for these Gentile rulers to be in power like this, that means that in the end, that time is going to end.
Yeah.
And so there will be a time when Israel will be restored and God will...
Yeah, the Son of Man will come riding on the clouds.
Yeah.
Maybe next year in Jerusalem. But yeah, so... I just find it so interesting because it's like the angel's like, oh, these guys are like the worst kings we've ever seen. Like both of them are bad. Like if you're trying to figure out who's the good guy in this war, neither one. They're both terrible. And if it was left to them, they would destroy each other and the end of the world would come. But the end has not yet come. It's not the appointed time. And so like the idea is that God, in the midst of all of this, is he's keeping them from being as evil as they possibly could be, right? He's well, we talked about this even in Genesis too, where like God is constantly he's stepping in the midst of things to prevent people from being as evil as possible, right?
Like with Babel.
Yeah. And even with like the Garden of Eden, to where like the reason why he kicks them out of the garden, a lot of times people say it's God cannot stand before sinners. That's not really what it is. The reason why is because he says, lest they eat from the tree of life and live forever. To where now that you have people who are evil, if they were to eat from the tree and live forever, like that means that evil would exist forever. And so God is putting a limit and a cap on their evil by kicking them out. And then with the Tower of Babel, same thing, to where, or even with the flood, right? With the flood, he's like, oh my gosh, every thought, like every intent of the thoughts of their hearts are only evil continually. We gotta put a cap on this. And so he wipes them out. And then Tower of Babel, he's like, wow, when these guys unify together, there's no evil that they can't accomplish. Guess I have to spread them out. And so God is constantly putting a limit on man's evil. That's what he did with Israel and Judah whenever he sent them into captivity. He's like, wow, y'all have become like the Canaanites. Okay, time to wipe most of y'all out and send the rest of y'all into exile. So he's constantly putting limitations on evil. But then you do have, like, when you get to like Revelation and some of the stuff in the prophets, where they do predict there will be a day when he is just going to let evil abound. And that is because in that day, he's going to make sure that they earn the judgment that they're going to get. To where it's like he just steps back and he says, go do it. Be as evil as you want. Because then whenever he shows up in judgment, nobody can say, we don't deserve this. He's like, okay, you do. And so that's kind of the, I mean, this could even tie into what in like Thessalonians, whenever Paul talks about like the restrainer, right? There's like there's some restraining force that's holding back evil. People debate about who that restraining force is. Some people think it's Michael. Some people think it's the Holy Spirit. It could just be God, right? God himself is restraining things, and he's holding evil back. But one day he's just going to let it overflow. So, sorry, I had to use the word overflow to bring us back to the text.
True, exactly.
And so, verse 28, then he will return to his land with great possessions. So this is the king of the north? Or is it south? No, south, right? King of the south.
Because the south was the one who got betrayed in 26.
Yes.
Both kings will be evil, and then he will return.
I would assume it's the south, since the south is the last kingdom mentioned.
Yeah.
But it just keeps saying he and him.
Well, other than the fact that the king of the north is the one who set this whole thing in motion, right?
Yeah, well, he did go down against the south.
Yeah, and last time we've seen the king of the south has been broken, and we haven't heard about a replacement yet, right?
No.
And so maybe this is the king of the north.
Yeah, that would actually probably make... And he's also the one, in the context of earlier, just like being set against the covenant and stuff as well.
Oh, and that's going to show up, yeah. So he will return to his land with great possessions, but his heart will be set against the Holy Covenant. So the idea is that the king of the north, he went down towards the south, and then eventually, something happens to where they reach like a stalemate, to where the king of the south is destroyed, but I guess the king of the north isn't the one who gets the glory. So he returns back, and something about this really kicks off his frenzy against the Jewish people. Right? To where now he's like, I hate those guys. The Holy Covenant, it sucks. And so he's going to take action and return to his own land. So he's going to do something in regards to the Holy Covenant, and then he's going to return home. At the appointed time, and so you have to ask, is this the appointed time that we just referenced? Or is this another appointed time? Like, is this the appointed time of the end, or is this just the appointed time set by God for this next event?
Mm-hmm.
At the appointed time, he will return and come into the south, but this last time, it will not happen the way it did before. So what happens?
So I guess, just to clarify, last time he went down there, and the king of the south had a big army, but he was betrayed from within.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he fell last time.
Yeah.
So it's clarifying that that's not how it's going to happen this time.
Yeah. Indeed, ships of Kittim will come against him. Therefore, he will be disheartened and will return and become indignant at the Holy Covenant. So what happens?
So the south will have some kind of, well, I guess it doesn't clarify if it's the south or it's their ally, but some kind of naval forces will come against him, so the North will actually lose, or they will retreat.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Katem is like Cyprus area, so like the
Oh,
island.
I think
And so that's why it ships from Katem. But it seems like they're coming down to support the king of the south.
I see.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so they come against him, and so what's going to happen to him?
He's not going to be happy.
Yeah. Think of like a toddler whenever like he doesn't get what he wants and he goes outside and just like kicks dirt. It seems like that's what this guy's going to do, right? The king of the north, he goes down, he wants to conquer the south, but he doesn't get what he wants, and so now he's going to throw a temper tantrum.
So he's like, I've been banging on these guys and kicking them and killing them for so many years now, and now I can't do it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw a tantrum.
Yeah, and so he's going to throw a temper tantrum, and he's marching back home, and when he's marching back home from the south to the north, who's going to receive the brunt of his anger?
Israel.
Israel.
Yeah, right? So basically this guy, he's going to realize he wasn't as powerful as he thought. And so now as he's returning home, he really has a desire to flex his power on somebody. He's passing through the beautiful land, and it says, therefore he will be disheartened and will return and become indignant at the holy covenant and take action. Right? So he's upset about how humiliated he's been from failing to conquer the south. He goes back and he takes out his frustration on the people of like the Jewish people. Right? So he's gonna just totally take action against them. So he will come back and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. So who is he gonna like?
More people who dislike the Jews.
Yeah, or even there might even be the idea of like apostasy here, right? So like he's gonna reward those who forsake it, to where it's like if you want to be like my buddy, abandon your God, right? Like that. I think that's kind of what's going on here, to where it's he's actively rewarding those people who forsake the covenant.
And I guess considering what we're about to read, it's more religious, almost religious in context.
Yeah. Mighty forces from him will stand, profane the sanctuary fortress, and abolish the regular sacrifice. Right? So what does he do?
He'll march in and defile the temple.
Yeah. So he's preventing them from actively being able to fulfill the Torah. And he cuts off, so he goes into the temple, he defiles it, and he cuts off sacrifices to where they are not allowed to offer sacrifices. Who does this sound like?
Our buddy, I forget his name.
Are you talking about like a historical person?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm talking about like in the book of Daniel so far.
This sounds like that horn, the really bad king from the north.
Yeah, it sounds like the little horn, right? Mm-hmm. That grew up. And so this is the one who, remember, it said he cut off the sacrifices for 2,300 evenings and mornings.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing, okay, this is the same guy that we're dealing with. And they will set up the abomination of desolation. Ooh, that's a loaded word. That term is going to show up a lot of other times in the Bible. And spoiler alert, Jesus is going to talk about it. And when he talks about it, he's going to talk about it as being a future event. Which is crazy, because Jesus is living over 150 years after this event takes place. Which means that throughout this entire prophecy, as we've been talking about it, we've been talking about the short-term fulfillment. But as we've also talked about, oftentimes the way biblical prophecy works is that there's both a short-term and a long-term fulfillment. Which means that there is a possible reality where everything we've been talking about also has a long-term implication.
So potentially,
which I'm not even going to delve into.
In verse 31, there's a potential that we could be starting some other end times revelation type.
I'm not saying starting in verse 31. I'm saying the entire vision, right? To where I'm saying that the way that prophecy generally works is that there's a short-term immediate fulfillment, and then there's a long-term ultimate fulfillment. And whenever Jesus references verse 31, he says, whenever you see the abomination of desolation spoken of in the book of Daniel in its place, y'all need to run away. But the thing is, according to the Jewish people of Jesus' day, the abomination of desolation had already occurred. But Jesus says, oh yes, but it's also a future thing. And the rest of the New Testament would seem to agree with that. And so that's why I'm just saying, just food for thought. Pretty much every prophecy we've been talking about, there is this short-term, long-term fulfillment that we have to consider. But what is an abomination of desolation? Like, just break down the terms. What does desolation mean?
Destruction.
Destruction. What is an abomination?
Very
Yeah.
It's like something despicable.
Something absolutely despicable. And so, what is an abomination of desolation?
Something that's ugly and chaotic.
Yeah, so it's something that's despicable that results in destruction of some sort, right? It does not specify what that is, but at the very least, it says that he will set it up. Where is the last place we left him in the previous sentence?
Temple.
In the temple, right? He's in the temple, he cuts off the regular sacrifice, and in its place, he sets up the abomination of desolation. And so when we get to the fulfillment, we should not be surprised whenever he cuts off the regular sacrifice and he puts an unholy sacrifice in its place, something that breaks all the Torah laws.
So isn't the doesn't he sacrifice like a pig or something?
I don't know. We'll have to talk about that next week when we actually look at the actual fulfillment. But it will be something that breaks Torah laws, right? So it is an abomination in the eyes of Torah. And as a result of him setting that up, it will result in the desolation, not only of his empire, but also the temple itself will be destroyed, right? And so that there's like the long-term thing of that as well. Did you have something you were going to say?
I was just gonna say that, like, in general, like in the Torah, like abomination is a word that is often used to refer to like other religious practices. Like the abominations are like either the gods of or like the practices of the other nations. Like the abominations of Ammon or of
the abominations of the Gentiles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to set up something in the temple that corresponds to pagan practices, but violates the Torah severely. Torah is an abomination in the eyes of God, and as a result, it will result in destruction. The temple will be destroyed, but also he will be destroyed as judgment for what he has done. And by smooth words, he will turn to godlessness those who act wickedly toward the covenant. So what happens there?
He's going to turn some of the Jewish people who are already evil, like more against the covenant, kind of turn them to his side.
Yeah, he's gonna be smooth, right? He's gonna be convincing and deceptive, and he's gonna be able to manipulate people to support him instead. But the people who know their God will display strength and take action. So what's gonna happen?
They're going to be people who know God, faithful remnant, and they're going to take action against this guy.
What does that mean?
You're going to try to fight him?
You're gonna fight him.
Yeah, they're gonna like see what's happening. They're gonna say this is not how.
This is not how
They're gonna resist.
Work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost
You
sounds.
gotta go, buddy.
It almost sounds like he's gonna convince people to partake in this like sacrilegious act.
Yeah.
He's gonna almost convince them that it's like okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like with the whole like Northern Kingdom stuff,
Yeah.
where he like set up this like false practice of Yahwism and like turn people to godlessness.
Oh, you're talking about Northern Kingdom and like kings.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jeroboam.
Yeah.
Yes. It does seem like that, to where this guy, he sounds like quite literally an antichrist figure, right? To where he is, if the promise throughout the scriptures, if the Messiah is the one who shows up to fulfill the covenant and to bring about peace and stuff, well, this guy's doing the opposite of that, right? He is actively guiding the Jewish people away from the covenant, to break it and to perform like sacrilege and stuff like that. But those who know God, so the people who are faithful, they will resist this, right? And those who have insight among the people will give understanding to the many. Yet they will fall by sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder for many days. So what's going to happen to the people who understand what's going on?
They're going to be killed.
Yeah, they're going to be killed, which is very interesting. Because, spoiler alert for the fulfillment of all this, the people who go down as the heroes of the story are the ones who fight back. But it seems like, according to Daniel, those people, they do know God, and so they do take action, but it seems like the people who are actually like filled with wisdom, they're the ones who suffer martyrdom. To where you don't hear about them raising up arms against the guy. Instead, they willfully suffer unto death.
I see.
Which I just think that's interesting, to where if you ask Jewish people to this day, there's literally there's like a feast every single year that celebrates the people declaring victory over them. But Daniel doesn't outright criticize those people, but it seems like he gives the greater honor to the people who didn't fight back, but who simply suffered unto death. and who are martyrs, right? The ones who have insight, they will give understanding, right? So they're probably going to explain, guys, this is exactly what Daniel said, right? They're going to explain the vision. But they will fall by sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder for many days. So they will be the victims of this oppressive regime. Now when they fall, they will be granted a little help, and many will join them in intrigue. So what happens there?
They're essentially going to get replaced. No, not really. There's going to be people that will agree with them, and there's going to be some that... Okay.
What does it mean by an intrigue?
That means
So-
piquing someone's curiosity, like there's some that they want to participate in that for.
So we've seen this language before. I'd have to look up what verse it is, but it's shown up in this passage.
Yeah.
Um,
Except it seemed like it was more about like scheming when it came up.
I think it is. I think that's what it is here too.
Mm-hmm.
So the word, that's fun. That's a crazy word in Hebrew. It's like such a long word. It's, gosh, halaklakot. Halaklakot. It literally means flattery, slipperiness, or just smoothness, or even hypocrisy. Yeah.
It's gonna
So
swim
there's-
with words.
So there's 32 has by smooth words, like that guy is scheming, but then in 34 there's like this other scheming going on.
They're scheming in return. Yeah, so
Okay.
I think the idea is that so several of the Jewish people are dying underneath this, and as they're falling, there's going to be some people who help them out. And it doesn't say where this help comes from. It could be from God. It could just be from external nations, or it could be from within themselves. Somebody's going to help them, and many will join them in intrigue. So a group of Jewish people are going to join together, and they're going to scheme back, and their whole goal is going to be to, topple this oppressive regime that's over them, right?
Okay, I see.
And some of those who have insight will fall. And so this refers to the people back in verse 33, right? The people who had insight who will give understanding to the many. Some of them are going to fall. So what's going to happen? What is the imagery of falling?
Defeat.
They're going to die,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're going to die in some way, which that ties into verse 33, because it said that they will fall by the sword and by flame and by captivity. But apparently, even after the intrigue and after the scheming, these people are going to fall as a result as well. It doesn't say that they necessarily fell because they were fighting, but they get caught up in the crossfire. Or maybe they were fighting as well. We just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they fall is in order to refine, purge, and make them pure until the time of the end. So what is the whole goal behind this faction that is growing against the King of the North?
It's like the faithful remnant. It's like being refined and purified.
Yes. So what is their goal then? Like in general, what are they wanting to do for all the people? I mean, it's basically what you said, but
They want to kick this guy out.
they're wanting to kick the guy out in order to refine the place and rededicate it to God, right? They're wanting to purge the land. I think of Torah when it says, "You shall purge the evil from your midst." Right? These people are going to take that to the extreme, and they're going to say, "All right, well, we're going to purge the evil by raising up our swords and fighting back." And so they're going to do this, and their goal is to refine, purge, and make them pure until the time of the end. So they are wanting to establish a kingdom in their own right, to make things ready until the end, because it is still to come at the appointed time.
So the them in verse 35 refers to like, so there's the people who have insight that will fall, and you're saying like who's the them? That's just like the people in general.
I think so. That's how I'm interpreting it. Because in general, it seems like the King of the North is referred to in like the singular. And so
Yeah.
the only two options is that the them is either the Jewish people in general or the people who have insight who fall.
Okay, so how I read it is the people of insight are going to fall, and as a result, the remaining Jews are going to be like, we need to purge the evil, so we're going to grab our swords and we're going to fight against
Well,
this
it
guy.
seems like it is those who have insight, it is their falling, like the purpose of their death is to, like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it says, some of those who have insight will fall in order to refine, purge, and make them pure. You see what I'm saying? So it seems like the people, like the wise people, the wise Jews who die in this, in whatever's going on here, the purpose of their martyrdom and the purpose of their death is that they're, basically they think they're dying for something bigger than themselves, right? They're laying their lives down in order to refine the Jewish people as a whole.
Mhm.
That's how I'm interpreting it.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all would agree.
Yeah, I was like reading it kind of like in that sense. I was just not entirely sure, like, what's the word? Basically, just how to specifically read it. But I was thinking it had to do with like refining the people in general, like. But I wasn't sure exactly how exactly it worked out. But
Yeah.
like, just because I guess like throughout most of the passage, it hasn't really gone very like. I kind of hate saying like spiritual, but like it's been very just like kind of like matter of fact with things.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure if it was talking about like kind of the idea of like martyrs falling in order to like almost. It has to do like testing of faith and stuff,
Mhm.
like encouraging people to like stand true and like
Yeah.
keep the faith.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of like the Apostle Paul when he's writing in the Colossians and he says, "Remember my chains." Like,
Yeah.
to where the whole thing is he's saying, "Look at what I'm willing to suffer." Right? Like it's a call to faith.
Because this is referring to the people who have insight that
Yeah.
are the ones doing this to set the example.
Yeah, they view their sacrifice, like they view their lives as living sacrifices, to where they're laying their lives down, rather than doing what the other ones did and forsaking the covenant. Right? To them,
Yeah.
they would rather be faithful unto death.
Yeah, it's almost like the sacrifices that are opposing the abomination, desolation. Yeah.
Ooh, that's kind of poetic, right? He sets up this ungodly sacrifice, and he says, if you're gonna cut off the sacrifices, we offer ourselves as sacrifices. Like that'll preach right there. That's kind of cool. It is interesting to me though, something about the language here, and I don't know. This could be just like, since this is where my own bias might be like blinding me here.
Mm-hmm.
Just to put all my cards on the table. We know what historically this is referencing, right? We're going to talk about it next week. But I could be reading too much into it, but it seems to me almost like the language here could be critical of the mindset of these people. Because it says like it's wanting to make them pure until the time of the end because it is still to come at the appointed time. And so I'm trying to think of it, like figure out if it's saying they're trying to establish the kingdom before its appointed time.
Mm.
Like I can't see if like I can't tell if Daniel like approves of this or not. Or I mean, it's the angel talking. I guess the angel could just be speaking neutrally, to where he's not really giving his commentary whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
But to me, the language almost implies like he's like they're trying to purify the kingdom before the appointed time. To where it's like there is an appointed time in the future where God is going to establish the kingdom, but these people, they're trying to establish it themselves. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess it's hard to tell because it does, like I said, it does refer to them as people with insight. And
Yeah.
So it seems like it's people who do have like a big picture.
Yeah. And so it probably is more positive. This might just be like my own like analysis of what went down where I'm like, guys, come on. But I don't know. Okay, anyways, verse 36. Well, I guess we got to speed up because it's already 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Then the king will do as he pleases. So this is the king of the north. And he will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will speak astonishing things against the God of gods. Okay, who does this sound like? Who we've read about in Daniel.
This sounds like that little horn.
Yeah, but what's interesting is it doesn't sound like the little horn from chapter 8. It sounds like the little horn from chapter 7.
On the fourth beast.
On the fourth beast, which we've typically associated with Rome.
Yeah.
To where, again, you're kind of getting the idea that there's going to be several of these horn-like figures who show up, to where, in many ways, they're all portraits of like this ultimate little horn yet to come.
And
Because
I
if you're...
I don't believe here. I don't believe. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I don't believe in chapter 11 yet we've gotten to Rome.
No, this is all in the context of
Come
Greece.
up in-
And so, this guy's going to magnify himself above every god. He will speak astonishing things against the God of gods. So he's going to say, like, he's just going to think the world of himself, and he's going to speak blasphemous things against the God of Israel. And he will succeed until the indignation is finished. For that which is decreed will be done.
It's almost like in the same sentence he's saying he'll magnify himself above every god, but then he also phrases the end of it as if he's like subservient to like what God's decreed.
Yeah, this is where the angel makes it very clear God's not going to tolerate that. It's like this guy thinks that he's a big deal, but God's only going to let it happen. Like It's kind of like the Tower of Babel. Like, these guys are climbing up to heaven, and God has to look down to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, the angel's like, yeah, this guy is going to say some pretty messed up stuff, and he's going to think that he's even greater than, like, Yahweh. And God will allow that to happen until God says to stop. Like, to where it's like, he's not actually that powerful. God is going to allow it until the indignation is complete. Which, again, it's that same language that you have of, whenever God's talking to Abraham, he says, your seed will go down into a foreign land for 400 years until the iniquity of the Amorite is complete.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Revelation, whenever it says, until the number of martyrs reaches its full. Like, God always has this period of long suffering and patience where he's like, okay, I've allowed there to be a certain amount of time for my indignation to reach its height, and then I'm going to judge. Whenever God describes himself as being long of nose, right? It takes a long time for his nostrils to flare, but when his nostrils are flaring, you better expect there to be some smoke coming out.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what's going on here. And then, once the indignation is finished, that which is decreed will be done. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, or for the desire of women. I believe here they've inserted the word his. This is where, again, interpretation translations annoy me. I believe that here it should just be the gods of the fathers. In which case, I would refer to this probably referring to Yahweh, rather than just like in general paganism, because again that would fit like thematically with it too, to where it's like it's building up to, it starts off, he magnifies himself above every god, he blasphemes against the God of gods, he doesn't even show regard for the God of gods, right? So the God of the fathers, but he also has no regard for the desire of women. What's that referring to?
I have two ideas. Either he's gay, or he emphasizes chastity like Catholics.
So those are both the most common interpretations. And a lot of people, since they say that this guy is a picture of the Antichrist, they will say, the Antichrist is gay! And I think that there might be something different going on here. And if y'all, since y'all have been studying the Bible with me long enough, y'all might know where I'm heading with this. Whenever I hear the phrase desire of women, I think of Genesis 3:16. Mm-hmm. The word for desire here in Hebrew is different, but it is the same notion of the yearning of, Genesis 3:16, God says, and your desire will be for your man, and he will rule over you. And the way I interpret that is that a reference to the Messiah. Most people interpret that as being a reference to her husband, but I think that there's more linguistic and contextual evidence to suggest that it's about the Messiah.
No, sorry.
No, go for it.
No, I was going to say, that's kind of the direction I was thinking too, because, probably two big reasons. One, the context of all of this is very,
religious.
Yes. And it's like before it says the God of his fathers, and then it's no regard for any other God. It's all about, in that kind of a context anyways. But also, in general, in Scripture, the desire of women usually has something to do with, sons and, rising out, like sons to be born that become leaders to deliver them.
Yeah.
So one other way to interpret this is maybe he doesn't desire women because he thinks, I'm going to live forever.
Yeah. Well, again, but to go to what Sean's saying, we have to let the context inform it, and all the context is about religious stuff. Mm-hmm. And so if you were, there is a way you can interpret it and say, he doesn't desire to have kids because he's not concerned with his legacy. But I think that it's more talking about, the desire of women, you've got the God of the fathers, and that would be, Yahweh himself, right? The desire of women, from a biblical perspective, is the longing for the Messiah, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is, kind of calling back to, Psalm 2, where it's why do the nations rage, and, they're fighting against the Lord and his anointed one. And so to me, that makes more sense because he's specifically waging war against the covenant. And so he has no regard for God, and he has no regard for God's kingdom, right? The whole kingdom program that God is setting in motion, and the ultimate desire of women, the Messiah who will show up. He doesn't care about that. And so he is being positioned as an anti-Christ, an anti-Messiah figure. Mm-hmm. To me, the context supports that a little bit more. Whereas if you're suggesting it about, I understand where people arrive at, the whole gay or more like a chastity interpretation, but that isn't that phrase suggests that in isolation, but the context would argue against it, if that makes sense. Which is actually the same thing that I argue with Genesis 3:16. Because you could argue that it's talking about her desire for her husband, but I think that the surrounding context argues that it's about the Messiah. And so it's all about trying to figure out not just the phrases in isolation, but the context around them.
Yeah.
And so he has no regard for God. He has no regard or like for the Messiah or his kingdom. And he will instead honor a God of fortresses, a God whom his fathers did not know. He will honor him with gold, silver, costly stones, and desirable things. So it's not that he's anti-religion. He's specifically anti-Yahweh. And he is going to insult Yahweh by offering worship to another God. And he will take action against the strongest of fortresses with the help of a foreign god. What do you think the strongest of fortresses is a reference to here?
Maybe the strongest and most powerful kingdoms at the time.
So where has he been? Like, what has all the context of these verses been about? Who is he specifically waging war against?
God, the Jewish people.
The Jewish people,
Yeah.
right? And throughout the passage chapters, we've seen the kings of the north and south attacking the fortresses of each other. But now, as he's waging war against the Jewish people, it says he's going to go. He's going to take action against the strongest of fortresses.
I'm going to assume that would be referring to the temple then.
That's what I would assume. I would assume this is specifically talking about him waging war against the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to do that with the help of a foreign god, right? So he is going to do something to the temple in the name of a foreign god. You having a good time over there, bud? He will give great honor to those who recognize him and will cause them to rule over the many and will apportion land for a price. So basically, he's going to... This is going to be a time of really big corruption amongst the Jewish people. There's going to be some who fight back and they're wanting to rededicate the land, but there's going to be many who apostatize and they're going to compromise and they're going to become politically corrupt in order to attain power. And sure enough, when we get to the New Testament, this is exactly what we see. Whenever you have the Pharisees and the Pharisees are the separatists who refuse to bend the knee. And pretty much all the different groups of Jewish people that we have in the New Testament, they stem from this time period. They all developed around that time according to history. To where the Pharisees, they were the ones who were very passionate about the law. And the Sadducees, they're the ones who compromise for political power. And so that's why they're wealthy, that's why they're priests. Because at this time period, the priest ends up being an appointed job where it's all about if you can buy your way into power. And so that's going to set the stage for the New Testament. Anyways, final verses. Let's go to it. And at the time of the end, the king of the south will collide with him. Hey, the king of the south is back. That's good. And the king of the north will storm against him with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. All right, so what's happening here?
He's got a vast army.
Yeah, so it seems like the king of the north is getting distracted from Jerusalem now. To where now he's fighting with the king of the south again.
Would this be like the end of the indignation?
I'm assuming so, or at the very least, it's probably the end of Greece's like power at this time. Or something. Like I don't know, like it just says at the time of the end. So it probably is the end of the indignation. The question is, what is the indignation? I guess it's at the very least whenever God is tired of this guy's antics. So at his end.
Yeah, because before I said like he would basically allow him to do that until the time of the indignation was complete. But
yeah.
Either way, it works out because if the end of the indignation is the end of Greece, like their rule, then it lines up.
Yeah. And because technically Greece is going to be around a little bit longer, but at the very least, it's at this guy's end.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least. And so they're going to go fight against each other, and he will also enter lands, overflow them, and pass through. So they're conquering one another. And he will also enter the beautiful land, and many countries will fall, but these will be rescued out of his hand. And so this is the king of the north. Once again, he's going through the beautiful land, and he is just knocking things down in his wake. But there's 3 groups of people who are saved: Edom, Moab, and the foremost of the sons of Ammon. What's up with that?
Okay, well, I was going to be jumping ahead again, so I shall refrain.
It is kind of interesting that it's these guys.
Why?
Well, as we've been going through Genesis, these are all people that are descended from.
Lot's daughters, right?
Well, they're all like kind of part of Abraham's family in some way. Like, so Edom is descendants of Esau, which is Jacob's brother, and then Moab and is it Ammon?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, Moab and Ammon are both sons of Lot, which is Abraham's nephew.
So they're both like all these three countries are like the cousins of the covenant, I guess.
Yeah.
Which, why do you think that's significant? Like, I feel like there'd be a different message here if it said Philistia and Amalek would be spared. It specifically says Edom, Moab, and Ammon, who are all the relatives of the covenant. Also, this is just a side thing. It's so weird to me that the sons of Ammon are always called the sons of Ammon. They're not, like, even whenever we translate it as Ammonites, it's usually sons of Ammon.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, I don't know, it's... Like Edom and Moab are just the names of the patriarchs, right? Esau's other name was Edom, and Moab is the patriarch. But it doesn't say Edom, Moab, and Ammon. It says Edom, Moab, and the sons of Ammon.
Yeah.
And it always does that consistently. I don't know why, but that's just something that I've noticed and I don't have an answer for. Anyways, back to my point. Why is this cool?
Well, I think it's cool. I don't know if it's the most significant part of the passage, but it just kind of shows that even at this point, God still shows regard for Abraham.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. Especially because, I mean, all these people are, I mean, the only people who are missing from this is like Ishmael, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they're all people who, in some way, were like victims of some, like Lot and his family, like they were spared from Sodom and Gomorrah, but the daughters just seemingly thought that like everybody else was dead, and so they decided to sleep with their dad, and so they produced this like thing that like these kids shouldn't have existed, but they did, and out of favor towards like Abraham, God still allowed them to become these nations. And the same thing with Esau, to where Esau technically like he sold his birthright, he lost the blessing, like he really didn't need to be anything, but God still honored that, and so
Yeah.
it's interesting how even here, thousands of years later, he's still honoring that like the creation of that. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Verse 42. Speaking of people who aren't going to survive, he will send forth his hand against other countries, and the land of Egypt will not escape. And you're like, but wait, Egypt still exists to this day. Yeah, modern Egypt is not the same as ancient Egypt, right? There's no pharaoh sitting on the throne, and so
They don't even have the same religion anymore.
yeah. Just to be clear, it's like
Islamic.
the only nation I can think of that has literally died and come back is Israel. And to be fair, modern Israel is still a little bit different than ancient Israel. Well, actually, quite a bit different, but I just think that's interesting. Okay, anyways. But he will rule over the hidden treasures of gold and silver and over all the desirable things of Egypt, and Libyans and Ethiopians will follow at his heels. So this is all just talking about the king of the north still. But reports from the east and from the north will dismay him, and he will go forth with great wrath to destroy and devote many to destruction. And so you get the idea that this time he marches south. If you remember, he had marched south before, but he was unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm.
This time he is successful, but he gets distracted because now his empire is getting really big, and he's hearing reports from other places where he's like, "Oh crap!" And so he has to go back, and he's going to go and conquer stuff like that. And he will pitch the tents of his royal pavilion between the seas and the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. So what happens at the end?
He eventually gets conquered.
Yeah. He pitches his tent somewhere between the Mediterranean Sea and Jerusalem. But then eventually he will die, and there will be nobody who comes to his aid. And so there's a really long prophecy. Next week we'll come back and we will actually break down how every single one of these was fulfilled. I need to get myself ready because that's probably going to be me talking a lot because I'm just going to be reading off the slide. And hopefully I'll be able to add commentary based on other things that we don't mention on the slide. But
Yeah.
all right, I know it's late. Real quick, final thoughts. Why was this whole vision necessary? We already kind of addressed it along the way, but what would we be missing from the Bible if this were not here, other than a really cool prophecy?
I will say, even without this passage, I don't think that you need this passage to know that God's in control. But at the same time, the fact that it is so specific it is of great benefit to those later on, because as you said before, this is like almost like a second Deuteronomy, where it's like in Deuteronomy, God or Moses tells the people when these things happen, you'll know.
Deuteronomy 32.
Yeah, literally, it's like Deuteronomy 32, where it's like you'll know when these things happen. Like God already said it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so it was more for the future generations than it was like that current generation. I think you could argue this is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like
Well, especially because Deuteronomy 32 is, let me tell you what your end will be, but it's talking about the people of Israel. Whereas now it's talking about like the end of, like Daniel's near the end of his life, and God is telling him or an angel's telling him, here's what the end of not this empire but the next empire will be.
And this is right before they go into the land again.
Yeah. Yeah, which that's kind of cool. Wow. Yeah.
So he's like, originally going into this, you thought you were near the finish line. Nope.
Yeah.
Nowhere near.
And then what I love is that this successfully gets us, like, if you go back to like Daniel's vision of the 4 beasts, what was the beast that Daniel was so troubled by? The fourth one, right? He's like, let's go to the 4th beast. What's up with that? And I love that this vision ends with the end of the 3rd beast, to where God's like, you thought I'd give you an answer, but he doesn't give it. And so I think that's interesting. But to your point, Sean, I think that we do, like you said, Scripture universally testifies to the fact that God's in control. But I think that this chapter almost gives us like a better understanding of what that control looks like. Like when we talk about the sovereignty of God, one thing that I like to distinguish between is whether or not he is in control versus whether he is controlling. I was actually talking with Luke about this a few days ago, because they went to a worship conference a few days ago with like the whole worship team, and there was a preacher there, and he was like preaching like hyper Calvinism, like in the sense of like just like basically man has no free will whatsoever. God controls every single thing that you've ever done. Like it was like a very extreme version of it. And I'm not Calvinist in any way whatsoever, right? But to me, one of the key dividing lines there, well, I have several dividing lines with Calvinism, but one of the key things is God controlling or is he in control? Because whenever I talk about God's sovereignty, I mean that he is in control of everything, but that does not mean that he is actively controlling every single thing a person does. Which I would argue that actually is a greater form of sovereignty, to where God is in control of everything, even though he allows people to make their own decisions. To where God doesn't require everybody to be puppets on a string where he's controlling everything. Instead, he is so confident that he is in control that he allows people to do whatever they want, yet he is confident that in the end he will accomplish things because he knows exactly what choices they're going to make. And so to me, when you look at this chapter, it doesn't say God will make the king of the north do this. No. But God knows he will. Right? It's like, yeah, God, like, the king of the north is going to do this, the king of the south is going to do this, they're going to battle, and God knows all of it, but it's not him making them do it, and it's not him giving his seal of approval to them doing it. It's simply a matter of fact, and it's not going to catch God by surprise. And I think that gives us a better understanding of God's sovereignty, because through all of this, you've got these kings who are like, oh yeah, I'm in control of everything. And God's like, no, you're not. God's like, I'm literally just entertaining you, and I'm allowing you to do this until I put an end to it. Right? It's kind of like if I have a child, I can let my child go play outside, and my child might think that they have free reign to do whatever they want. But at any moment, I can grab that child and bring him inside. Right? It's like, I know it's like, okay, you can go play until dinner time. All right, well, that kid, up until dinner time, they can do whatever they want. And if I know them well enough, I might know exactly what they're going to do that time for. But when dinner time rolls up, I'm grabbing you, time for dinner, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think this chapter gives us a better understanding of God's sovereignty. Because it's like, he has perfect foreknowledge, but that doesn't mean that he is actively giving his seal of approval to everything, and he's not actively forcing it to happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure. But none of it catches it by surprise. So, anything you want to add to this chapter? Going once? Going twice? Going thrice? What's after that? Quatrice?
Something like that.
I get why they stop at thrice, because quatrice just doesn't really...
How about twice?
Yeah, twice. Okay, cool. Well, can I get one of y'all to close us out in prayer?
I'll do it.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for cause or any circumstance, and use us to influence many others to live for you, and just generally cause ever greater a spread of influence from that, for many more people to be saved. In Jesus' name.
Amen.